Alrighty, welcome back to Divas, Diamonds, and Dollars podcast. We empower career women, business owners, and yes, late bloomers with the tools and strategies for living a bolder, fuller life. Each week we talk personal finance, leadership, and business, folks. Follow us to get ahead and succeed at a higher level. We are your hosts, Larisa Troche and
I am Cecilia Benford.
Starter Home, Dream Home, or Investment Property. What should you
Mhm.
buy first? Now, I'm just pretty sure folks don't think of it that way. Maybe they do. But I'm going to suggest that is what we call an excellent question. And lest you get caught up in analysis paralysis, I'm going to walk you through some brainstorming options to help you decide. So, as you pencil out your options, consider the best property isn't always the prettiest one. Depends on your goals. So it is really the one that best supports your current season of life. Let's
Mhm.
discuss. Okay, so when you think about the perfect home, what's your fantasy? Now, if you're like most people, you probably lean into the emotional side of things, such as thinking about that dream kitchen. For me, it's the spa bathroom. I had some thoughts. If I had some, way too much money, it would be to make a crazy bathroom. That's what I would spend my money on. The backyard oasis with or without the hot tub. But surely you picture the outdoor kitchen setup because that's a thing. Um, if you
Mhm.
like entertaining, which I do. So, ladies, can you see the walk-in closet with the excellent lighting and Instagram-worthy photos? True story. I totally shared some photos of my closet setup when I bought this house. Let's be real. I did because it looked good. Now, that was a few years ago. It does not quite resemble those beautiful pictures, but I did share. So I would think that very few people stop and think, what type of property actually makes the most sense for my life right now? And the answer might surprise you because sometimes the smartest first purchase isn't necessarily a dream home. Sometimes it's your stepping stone home. And sometimes it's an investment property that changes your financial future. So,
Well, that all sounds pretty good. I hope people take advantage of this whole thought process, because certainly as we were preparing for this, it did make me think about a lot of things. And so I'll little share in a minute, I suppose. Won't be like your master bedroom taking pictures, though. I have to laugh at myself, really. So, are you keeping up with the Joneses, aka the Kardashians? Depends on where you live, who you are. You might be, one or the other. It is easy to get wrapped up in social media pressure. Oh my word. The Instagram lookbook, posts or worse, Pinterest boards. You just can get lost with either one, right? I've seen it. Um, I've seen people dreaming, I mean, going through, oh, what about this? What about that? And so, as a more mature person, what I have learned is I don't want to start being stalked because I was looking at anything. So that's just a sidebar. To think, just set the stage for what are you looking at? Okay. How about HGTV syndrome? Now, I do like some HGTV sometimes. Don't get me wrong. It is really wonderful tracking to see what people ask for, what their budgets were. Oh my gosh, budgets. They make it look so easy, don't they? And you're thinking, okay, now how long did it really take them to do that? How about comparison culture? Oh, we're just drowning in comparison culture, which really goes back to, in my mind, it's just another way of saying keeping up with the Joneses or Kardashians, because we're always looking over the fence at what somebody else has. So, I mean, when I walk around this neighborhood, I do look at the homes and the yards and say, what about, okay, okay. Oh, you get ideas if nothing else, right? How about the forever home obsession? You didn't know that was a thing? Well, it is. Particularly if you've been renting, especially in some areas, it is a grind. And so it's that whole, oh, one day. So I think there's a lot of, now you see, okay, your eyes start visualizing and you start thinking. And then FOMO, oh yeah, the old fear of missing out. So if you don't buy now, all the good ones will be gone. Now that is alive and well right now, at least in our area. Or the prices will be higher. And let's face it. Or any other myth that you want to go with because that's what we live in now, or if they're not conspiracy theories, they're myths, right? So um I do hear that and it really is kind of real meaning the pressure, you know, that people can put out there. And then there's just, let's just call it what it is, emotional buying. It's really no different than, going to the mall or surfing on the internet, although a house is much bigger purchase. But sometimes we're just buying things out of emotions for whatever reason. Maybe it's some a growing up thought, or you feel like you're getting behind. It's what your friends are doing. So, my friends have a home. Why don't I have a home? I'm this old and I haven't done anything yet, such as buy a home. So people often shop for homes based on aspiration instead of strategy. Okay, strategy. You want a home just so you are really getting after it. You want to go for it without a lot of thought because it's easy to visualize. I know I want to buy a home and I have some idea. So what else should I do but just go for it? And, somewhat as I sort of alluded to, maybe there's this next statement is kind of caught up in several things. One, what did you grow up with? What is your environment? And what is somebody saying about today's market? So it's parents' generation versus today's market. I hear and see, I read these comparisons all the time. There's a lot of talk about how things were when. Higher rates, okay, sure. And I mean, things have been up and down over the last several years, but as we get into the strategy of things, maybe you'll take a second look about that. People still long for the economic boosting COVID interest rates. Okay, y'all, how long has COVID been gone? And honestly, before COVID, I mean, we sort of have got people thinking about a handout, and that really is not a strategy. That is it's sort of under the category of hope. It's not a strategy. How about affordability pressures? If I don't buy now, I'm going to miss out. Really, kind of back to that FOMO. With home prices the way they are, you have to earn a lot more to qualify for a loan. That's true. I mean, I have thought as I look at what it costs today for houses, my house is certainly appreciated based on when we bought this one. And so I didn't have to have the same amount of, money to put down. Delayed home ownership. Trends indicate that young people are doing that. They are waiting to buy for many reasons. And so now the breakdown. Essentially, we want to review the three primary home buying categories that you might have or consider. Okay. So let's start with the starter home. Being mindful of your budget, you start at the lower end of your pre-approval range. Note I said lower range. As again, as I was thinking about this home ownership buying series that we're doing, it made me go back to what we did when we bought this particular home. Maybe it's a fixer upper. Some people are really into that. I just ran across a situation where I took my grandson to a friend's house, and it was a very unusual situation. I don't want to say what it was, but it was a fixer-upper, and I was like, wow, that's different. And so sometimes fixer-uppers, doesn't have good bones or just needs a little love. Some just need some upgrades here and there. And like I say, it depends on what your knack is. This could be a good time to make a move depending on your needs first, income, and your family dynamics as well as your timeline. But you also have to consider, are you at the beginning or the end of your career? Can you buy now and wait for interest rates to drop and your home value to appreciate, perhaps? Well, let's give a little more thought about what is a starter home. Generally speaking, it's often smaller. So when I say smaller, we're thinking, 3 bedroom home. Some as little small as 2 bedroom homes, actually. 2 to 3 bedroom homes, but certainly not a 4 bedroom home, right? Unless you're thinking about your office. A lot of time, COVID really brought that out and people's desires to have an office, a home office, right? And so, workout rooms, I was talking to a lady Friday, and we were just talking about, places to work out, and I asked where she had one. I have a workout room in my home, and that has always been a consideration. Um, and so I asked her, she said, well, she didn't have room to do that. And so, and then, sometimes a starter home is not, it's not going to be perfect, right? It might not even be modern. I've seen both in what people, intend to do. A lot of times they may be farther out because, when people built homes, they were maybe in, somewhat rural in nature, like say in Ohio, or, maybe it has land with it and a small house. I've seen that situation. And there's starter home. This is a starter home that I'm talking about for somebody I know recently. They were more interested in the land, perhaps, but really being farther out. And then, now that we're on Instagram and we put everything on Instagram, just not Instagram worthy. Okay, not something we want to share. The good old curb appeal just might not be there. And so, heaven forbid, I probably would say wall heaters, that certainly, would be a no-go for me. But what a starter home does provide is accessible entry point. So the fact that I'm talking about a starter home, this assumes you don't have this home, okay? That you're buying your first home. So you start where you start and grow from there, right? The starter home is going to build equity for you. That is very important. As you know, we're talking about, we always combine investment and property and, just building for your future. A home in and of itself, hopefully it's more than just that, right? So, older, smaller homes do appreciate. Remember also when you're thinking about that, location, location, location. Super important. Never forget that. Create stability. As you are in your starter home, biggest investment, right? So it's also important how you're going to handle this investment. And what this does for you is definitely improves your credit. So that's important for where you're going. Moving on up always means we want to have good credit. Um, you tend to become less nomadic. If you're in a home, all of a sudden you're not thinking about some rental for 6 months or a month, a year or 2 years, right? You're thinking about, okay, I think I need to stay put. I am going to stay put. And particularly if you have kids at home still, there's something um, better for your children and the little ones in a starter home. How about teaches ownership? if you've never experienced it, maybe your parents didn't grow up with it, and now you're striking out on your own. Owning a home will teach you a lot, at least hopefully, because it means you are responsible for the most important asset that you have. And then, yeah, there's a little bit of emotional resistance too. Hey, I believe when you buy a home, there is some pride in owning a home. Because it not only is it a big step, but when you do make that step, I mean, you're proud of that accomplishment. And now, thankfully, you can stop comparing yourself to others because, hey, I've done it. I've done it. You don't have to feel embarrassed anymore. Um, and let's face it, people, again, when we're thinking about the hierarchy of needs, okay, we don't want to start out with the Taj Mahal. That's in my mind is a deal breaker. I know people have done it, but it's a deal breaker. So a quick Devo teaching point, that's what we're here for, is that some buyer, sometimes you think about purchasing a home, a starter home means that you failed. No, in reality, it actually may mean that you're thinking strategically. And I tell you, I had a employee, actually, she used to be an employee, and it turned out my daughter got her as a client, and she became her realtor. Of course, this all was just, I had nothing to do with the connection. But once I found out about it, I remember this young lady. Oh, I was so happy for her. And it was a starter home. And after she closed, I went and visited her. And so, and given the nature of what business we were in terms of career wise, her buying and contracting skills and knowing what she wanted, I just thought it was just a great opportunity. So, I want to tell you about a few advantages of a starter home, in case you haven't picked up some. Lower monthly payments. Now, who doesn't want that? I mean, unless you paid cash. I did know one person who I was it was a starter home. Well, she didn't pay it down. She didn't have, I mean, buy the whole thing, but she almost did. So the thing is, you won't, hopefully don't get overextended, easier maintenance because the smaller footprint. I mean, the things that you have to fix up should be less. How about lower property taxes? Now that one's a huge one, especially in Ohio. We have, property taxes are a big deal. It's kind of like something they need to fix, but that's a sidebar. So the homes do get reassessed at the time of ownership. So sometimes, if you're buying $1 million property, that's a whole other thing you may not have thought about. And sometimes I've seen where people didn't think about until closing. It's like, well, somebody missed something. Okay, easier to furnish. Again, thinking not necessarily baby steps, but strategically speaking, you want to take steps that you can manage financially and probably in a time scope. So your loan qualification is based on your income, and your purchasing power is certainly going to go further in a smaller, less expensive home. And equity. We do talk about, making good financial decisions. So this is one that is a good financial decision. So just think about, there are starter homes are ideal for certain people. I won't go into that right now, but just want to highlight just a couple risks or maybe challenges, depending on how you look at it. You may outgrow it quickly. I mean, that does happen. Maybe you compromised on some things, and I mean, that happens too, where maybe you wanted to pin some pennies, but then you find out that, oh, I want to live a little. I don't want to just be, dealing with the home and, nothing else. So anyway, but older fixtures are going to need more repairs. So, with that being said, I will stop waxing eloquently on, oh my gosh, all the thought processes. Who knew that this could be a strategic decision?
And so, as the point we're trying to make is that your first property doesn't have to solve your entire future, and that's like it's not always one and done. If I don't remember if I say it in here, but historically, people would stay in their first home about 7 6 7 years. Reportedly, now that's gone up to 12 years that people are holding on. So, you're making a decision. It's a moment in time, and depending on which direction your life goes, maybe it is time to dream a little bit. So, what about option two, the dream home? So, if budget is not an issue and you're just so done with the renting scene, maybe you do go for the gusto and buy that house on the hill with plenty of square footage, upgraded fixtures, and enough smart home features to boggle the mind. I keep saying I want a smart home, but then I see those horror movies like where the home takes over. So I don't know, but I do think about it. This is not
Mm.
always a bad choice, depending on your life situation. And, it could be a right choice if you're ready to get comfortable, put down roots, and build more stability into your lifestyle. So if you're someone who knows what she wants, you may be ready for custom features. New construction often has some sweet options or upgrades to choose from. The ideal neighborhood, buy your lifestyle neighborhood. That's what people buy. They're not just buying an address, you're buying a lifestyle. So, do you need parks? Uh, I'll put an asterisk by that. I did not realize I bought a house across from a park. And so you want to be sure if
Mhm.
you buy a house near a park, folks. I'm just gonna throw that out for you. But houses that are adjacent on the green next to a golf course, the shopping, the arts, what is it that you like? So think about those lifestyle features when you're buying your home. And, if you're in already, look, you don't like to move a lot. Who does? Maybe you have some forever home thinking. You're in the accumulation stage and you're ready for long term. And yes, a little bit of emotional attachment. This could be a strategic emotional buy. So you ask, is now the right time for the dream home? That is your key question. So when it does make sense, brief like, because we may have gotten into this topic a little bit. Stable income, higher reliable income must be a certainty in as much as anything can be. Long-term location certainty, you're in it, you love it, the area, the state, the community, the culture, and can't imagine living anywhere else. If your children are settled, the little ones have flown the coop, maybe set up their own nest. Retirement planning, here where we don't want you to get lost in the weeds. Maybe
Mm.
this dream home is your retirement home. It's either ready or readily adaptable for senior needs. And look, here's the other kicker. Low debt, right? If you paid off your bills or don't have a lot of bills, because let's face it, a dream home is likely going to have a higher mortgage, so have you paid down your debt? And of course, do you have a strong emergency reserve? So listen, you can think about it, buying once instead of twice. So if that's what you want to do, I'm all for it. So uh, just make sure that you don't become house poor, which is house rich cash poor, because all your money's going towards that house. You don't have another nickel to play with. That will make you very depressed very quickly.
Mm.
Frankly, maintenance overload. Dream homes will still need to be maintained, especially if you got the extras like a pool or hot tub, high maintenance or expansive landscaping. All the things, you got to take care of that. And lifestyle inflation, that just kind of goes hand in hand, right? You bought the big house on the hill, so it happens. Your neighbor gets a car. Well, surely I need a new car because I can't have them think I can't afford a car. Can you really afford that
Mm.
car? So uh, furnishings, look. Now I used to I don't know why I was in such a hurry to furnish this house, but I went on a little tizzy. And I do get quite a lot of compliments on my home, but did I need to do it all at once? Because now I want to change. Been here a few years. I'm like ready. Maybe it's time to redecorate. I ain't crazy. And then of course insurance and property taxes, and enough said about that one because you know the rest of that sentence. And frankly, rising utility costs, larger square footage. It's going to cost more to heat and or cool. So hopefully, is your dream home energy efficient? So listen, a little midlife twist because I'm talking to my ladies in the 40-ish, 45 plus range. Do you really want a 4,000 square foot mansion? What you gonna do with all that space? Will you want stairs later? Because I'm here to tell you, my last apartment was on the third floor with no elevator. Let's go
Mm.
with no bueno. Talk about unloading the car. We did not enjoy that aspect. Will you still want to maintain an acreage or a large lot? Does that large home support your dream, your future lifestyle? Because true story, I'm gonna tell you this real quick. Like I had a beautiful 4-3 post-divorce home that I literally sold because I thought it was too much house for me. I so regret that. But at the time, I was an empty nester, and frankly, I was earning less than half of what I make now. Um, and it needed really, when I think back, just a little bit of maintenance. Something was happening around the window. All I had to do was take care of that, Larisa.
Mm.
So I
Mhm.
sold it to my neighbor. And when you do a quick sale with somebody, I'm sure I could have sold it for more, knowing what I know now, right? But I was just young and stressed and not making the best decision. But I wish I hadn't sold that house. But anyway, I parlayed the proceeds into another personal residence and a rental. So I did okay, but we're still having, thoughts. What
Mm.
woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Mm.
Okay, option three. Let's just bring this on home. Well, maybe you decide, you know what? Yes, I do want some real estate, but I'm not ready yet. So maybe you should get that investment property. That is okay. Many women, you know, maybe never thought about my first home should generate income. Why not think about that, folks? You're going to be a baller. And maybe you should own real estate, but you're just not ready for a home of your own because you the boss now. Something happens, you got to take care of it. Or maybe you haven't found the right one or haven't come across a deal that is just too good to pass up. What else? There are many reasons to choose an investment property first. And especially, as I like to point out, if your income is at a level where you can use some tax breaks, because we can use
Mm.
some tax breaks, gentle persons. If you can charge at least 1% of the purchase price towards the rent and the home is at least a 3-2 or bigger, the rental as a first option may actually be the way to go. I'm just saying. Okay, so let's reframe investment property because you have lots of options. And I think I did a workshop. I know I did a podcast on this episode, but we'll talk about it again. House hacking, right? Duplexes, you know this drill. Live in one side, rent out the other. That'll help you cover the mortgage, if not entirely. Condos, I know condos make a lot of sense because then the maintenance is taken care of, but I'm just going to suggest that you tread cautiously and be aware of HOA dues creep. I had a horror story behind a condo, and I will not be buying another condo, gentle persons. Okay.
Mm.
It was all
Yeah,
about
that's
those
a lot.
HOA fees. Don't do it. But it is an option for some people. And consider a small multifamily. Most folks don't realize that up to 4 units is considered residential. You could get a fourplex, live in one, rent out three. That because it's considered residential, it's going to make it easier to qualify for a loan, whether as opposed to trying to buy like a 10, 20 unit property. That's a lot, young persons. Tread lightly. But anyhow, if you got it, go for it. Now, ADUs, we're talking like again, how to house hack. ADUs as an accessory dwelling unit that, you have a large, you have your single family home. And then if you have space in the back, you can put up a couple of, I say a couple, let's just go for the gusto. You could put up one or more additional housing. So it could be a duplex, it could be, depending on how much space you got back there. Let's just
Mm.
not be too crazy. Let's just go with one. And rent
Mm.
that out, right? So that actually is a good thing depending on where you live. They really talk about that a lot in California. And vacation rentals, you look, that can still work despite all the additional regulation and oversight that the cities are getting into. But I know the company that I'm a broker of record for, as they say, when uh, the student becomes the teacher, right? So he's making out quite nicely with his vacation rental income or house hacking, any of the above, but also renting a room, renting your garage, your pool, your backyard. People are doing dog parks in their backyard. Ooh. Or
Yeah,
your attic. I'm
someone.
just saying, get creative. Don't worry about that mortgage. You got steady income, you can do it. So remember, being investment property doesn't automatically mean being a giant landlord with a empire. That's not what we're talking about. So briefly, your
Mhm.
opportunities include rental income, leverage. It could be collateral for a loan, or the equity may allow you to buy another rental. Just saying. Appreciation, you still get that with the rental. You definitely get tax advantages, and I'm just here to tell you, you need some tax advantages today. Retirement strategy, maybe hold the income. If you can hold on to the house while you retire, that's additional income. Or maybe you
Mhm.
move into it after you retire. Multiple income streams. Rental income is a key wealth builder and ideally one of your make it, mind it, multiply it income streams, gentle persons. Now, not suggesting everyone should own investment property because not everyone wants to be a landlord.
Mhm.
However, one property can provide shelter and another property can provide more options. All right. Now, we're not saying jump into it with both feet without being aware of the risks because, there will be vacancies. And just so you know, when you're getting a loan on a rental, lenders only count 75% of that income. They think it's going to be vacant 25%. Hopefully not if you know it won't be if you know what you're doing. But definitely when you're running your budget, you want to allow for at least a 5% vacancy loss. You have to be realistic. Repairs, well, it's going to happen, a little bit more wear and tear. Tenants aren't always careful in caring for the home. Um, and tenants, listen here, no matter how adorable that young couple seems, you must screen them carefully. Run a background check. Do not take
Mhm.
anybody's word for anything.
Mhm.
And I say this preaching to the choir, I know, but it's such a good idea. You must have replacement reserves. Make sure you sock away money for future repairs because it's going to happen. And
Mhm.
emotional stress, yes. Well, look, you're going to screen carefully. Sure, you're going to choose wisely. And you can reduce, but you will not entirely reduce the stress. So just treat yourself well and manage it like a business because what? Oh, yes, it is a business. That's correct. All right, all right. So, and I have to mention regulations. I'm in California. I want to say it's the
Yeah.
most tenant friendly state, although I'm hearing some rumors about New York. I don't know. California's off the charts. So be aware of that. And insurance, we already talked about it. It is a thing. And I'm just going to throw out the last thing, property management, worth their weight in gold. Property's over there. It's a business. Property management's a deduction. Let someone else do the heavy lifting. So we've talked about emotional purchases versus strategic purchases. So here's a question you need to answer. Do you want a home or a wealth tool? Okay, we're going to bring it
Whew.
on home with how to decide which one is right for you. Cecilia?
Well, and so when you say that, clearly there's some critical thinking there, right? So critical thinking means you got to ask yourself some questions. Did I say critical questions? Yes, because it really matters. Let's, throw away the foo-foo stuff. Truly critical questions. Whew, this is one that I can relate to. And I do look around, as you get older, I remember, there's a as you watch neighbors buying home, moving in around. And it's like, why would I buy, to your earlier point, a four-bedroom home and I'm this age, not the age I am today, but older, nobody's in that home but you. I mean, I'm just thinking about this. Three stories? Why? And so I'm just using that as an example. What season of life are you in? And so when you ask that question, you're going to be thinking about the building. Do you want to build? Do you want to rebuild what you've already been doing? Do you just want to nest? Well, I had mentioned I was going to use myself as an example. We moved from a two-story home, 4 bedrooms, and we said we were going to downsize. That meant, well, downsize, but also be on one floor. However, I live in a community where basements are allowed. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of things you can do with a basement. So it was an unfinished basement. However, we did contract for a portion of it to be finished. But as time went on, it's all finished. And now I'm in the season of saying, oh my gosh, this is a lot of house to keep up with. So think about that. What season are you in? Uh, and I remember, I think I know Larisa's throughout landscaping. We've got a lot of landscaping. Again, what season are you in? Just one first critical question. What season of life are you in? How about what matters most right now? What matters most today for me is certainly different from somebody starting out. So first thing is stability. Well, I'm certainly stable, but are you stable? Are you seeking stability? What about your cash flow? What about your status? Okay, it goes with stability and cash flow, right? Freedom. I'm on the end of freedom. But if you're just starting out and you're trying to establish stability or you're trying to establish cash flow for that matter, you probably don't have freedom. Location, we always say, you know this, location, location, location. One of the things that I see in some communities, maybe it's you know, more adults or um, maybe you're moving because you want to be where there are children. But as you get older, maybe you don't want to be as involved in children. And so some people move because maybe they're starting to get, too many children in the area. What matters most to you right now? So it depends on what time of your life that you're buying a home, okay? And certainly flexibility. Um, so even though, and I would say in our case, this is our dream home because we built it from the ground up. We were able to pick options and, do some things, but we also made the decision just because we could afford more house, we didn't need to do that. And that has helped with the flexibility because you can then think about, some of the things you either want to do to it or that, fine tune, whatever, or that maybe you just want to move, downsize again. But so that leads me to the third question, as I was just using myself as an example. You have to ask yourself, what can you comfortably sustain? You know what? That's the magic bullet. It sounds, well, someone could say, well, I don't know. Well, yeah, we don't know a lot of things about life. Life happens. But um, and I did kind of address this part already, but to me, the earlier questions matters most kind of led into this one is what you can qualify for a lot of times gets people in trouble because some people take that big qualification amount of money and then they're stuck with a big house payment. Or, maybe, it's a couple, when they went into the home, but now they're getting a divorce. That happens. As I say, life happens. And so sometimes people get in over their head and it gets to be a mess when you split up. So you're thinking about, your finances, but you need some room for the what ifs. Okay. Are you buying emotionally or strategically? So we have given you lots to think about how to be strategic. And so consider where you are right now And if you're thinking about buying a house, hopefully, if you're kind of one of those, do things kind of on the fly, or you've been thinking about a house, but you hadn't thought about all these things, there really was an emotional thought process. Now you have something to, bounce against it because, hey, that's the one that you really want to say, whew, okay. So now you need to decide, what do I want this property to do for me? Yeah, did you know that that's really a thing? It is. Is it about you? Is it about impressing people? Wow, worst decision you could ever have for buying a house. But I know people who have. What about generating income? I mean, that's important, right? So, I like to hope if you're considering a house for that reason that you have some strategic thoughts going there, and I would think that's the case. But perhaps not. Perhaps maybe it was just a quick decision. Oh, you know what? I could buy a house and I'm going to have more money and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's not really strategic, right? How about reducing stress? Maybe you're renting, or maybe you just keep, oh my gosh, I just need to settle down. Maybe it's tied to your job. So look at that, that might just, you just need to wade through it and be honest with yourself about what the drivers are for you to buy a house. Building equity, always, always that's a positive outcome to me, no matter what, when you're buying a home. It's the best equity you could ever have. We all know that the second most expensive thing is a car, and you know that when you drive that car off the lot, it's 20% depreciated or more, right? And so you don't even get um, tax breaks with cars anymore, except for if you buy some brand new car and it does some things. And those tax laws change over time. But finally, support retirement. I want to say you're going to retire someday. Some people say, oh, I'm never going to retire. But let's think about our mid-career ladies that we tend to focus a lot of what we share. Um, you want to retire someday, so you do want to put this in your thought processes, supporting retirement. Where does that fit in? How, when? All right, so now that we've said all that, we have recommendations. So as noted, none are automatically right because it depends on your situation. There's no right answer for the same for everybody, right? The best property depends on your finances, your season of life, and risk tolerance, which with your risk tolerance, you have goals associated with that. And we're all very different in that. Um, you know, First I want to tell you about this framework and then just, add a little bit more. But starter home is going to offer you stability. A dream home, this part I was going to think about, say something about lifestyle fulfillment. Sometimes um, you get your dream home and you think you can manage the lifestyle, but sometimes we're looking at a friend or a neighbor who has more income, maybe a bigger house, and you're trying to live like them. But really, this it's a key area, particularly when building a home. So starter home, dream home, investment property. When you think about investment property, it is about wealth acceleration. So, as I said, there are no hard or fast rules, okay? Some people do these things in sequence, some combine them, some skip one or more entirely. This is about your desires, about what you want out of life, okay? So, believe it or not, we're bringing it on home, and I'm going to close with a couple more comments. The smartest home purchase isn't necessarily the biggest one. Okay, let that sink in. Or the prettiest one. I've seen all kind of homes. I look at homes because I've lived in many areas in the country. I travel a lot. They're all different. Some I could really like, but it doesn't mean I'm going to buy it, right? Um, or the ones social media applies. Well, now for me, I'm not that person, but there are a lot of people who do look at social media and they tend to go with, kind of follow influencers and all of that. But this is the statement that I'm going to make that I think is most important. It's the property that supports your real life, your financial future, and your peace of mind. That is where I feel like I am at, or know that I am. So I offer that as a good wrap up for things we've been talking about. And again, depending on what season you are, where you are, might not have that just right off the bat for sure, but striving for the property that supports your life, your financial future, and your peace of mind. Can't leave somebody else's mindset. So sometimes for the first move isn't, the best first move might not be buying your forever home. It's buying the foundation on which you build your bright future. So,
Alrighty.
with that,
You know, we always tend to overshare when we have something really important to talk about. And I feel like this is an important topic because I don't think people think about this enough. And so that's why, if you want to go deeper, make sure to attend my home buyer workshop on Saturday. I'm not sure it is actually the 19th, but let's say the 19th. I will have that accurate date in the
yeah, I think it's
description.
the 20th, maybe, but whatever
Um,
day. Yeah, it's the 20th.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely not because the 19th is a holiday.
right.
So Saturday, the 20th,
Yes.
um, is what I was thinking. And there will also be a different one on the 13th because that's a whole different topic. Yeah, June is home ownership month, so we just try and squeeze it all in. That's where we're going. We want you to be an informed buyer or seller. So, anywho, make sure that you join me for the 20th. Perfect, people. It is the 20th. And of course, follow me on Instagram, Larisa Home and Realty, for all the registration details. So that's where you will get the scoop for that. And lastly, I hope that if you found value in this episode, please share it with a friend because I think we can help you make some smart decisions. And with that, gentle persons, we will release you into the wild. We will see you next time. Ciao.